Hi, I'm Kent.
And I'm Anna.
We're married, we make movies, and we believe that anyone in any circumstance can make a feature film.
Welcome to the Feature Filmmaker Podcast. If you want a career making movies, you're in the right place.
Hit subscribe to never miss an episode.
Let's jump right in.
Awesome. Hey, well, welcome, Lee and Katherine, to the Film and Family Podcast. We're so happy to have you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Lee and Katherine are a married filmmaking duo, which sounds obnoxiously cheesy when I say it like that, but no shame because that's what we are. And you guys are in Colorado, and they just released a film that we became aware of because it was showing at the same festival as us called Rally Caps. And there's just so much to dive into about Rally Caps, but this is not your first feature film from what I've sleuthed online of you guys. This is like your fourth, fifth?
So it's my fourth film directing, and it's our second or third film as a directing, producing couple. Correct, Kathy?
Yes.
Right? Okay. I think it's the third. Yeah. It's hard to keep count, but yes, indeed.
So it sounds like, Katherine, you're the one who got kind of pulled into this. Is that right?
Roped in.
Yeah.
A little bit. Yes.
did
The
that
first
happen?
time he talked to me about the project, he had another book that he wanted to adapt. But I have a marketing background.
Okay.
And when he brought me that first book, I'm like, I don't know how to market this. I mean, I know you love it. He was holding exciting about it. And I'm like, I don't know how to market this. So I would recommend not to waste time on adapting that book. Then he got this book. And then when I said, before I read the book, pitch it to me, give me an elevator pitch. And he did. And actually I said, I know how to market this. And definitely then he started writing it, and I got involved once production started, and I saw some difficulties in production that he was facing because he was director, writer, producer. So he's like, no, I think that you need help. So that's how I got involved.
Okay. So was it a book first, or was it just he wrote the screenplay? It was a book first.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
It's a book. Yeah. It's a book. It's a little different, I think. And Lee, you can talk about the adaptation of the book.
Mhm.
It's a little different, but go ahead.
Yeah, it's based on a book by it's a daughter father combination writing team, Stephen Cutler and Jody Michelle Cutler, and they wrote the book based on it's an amalgamation of their own experiences. So there's a lot of true stories, Jody's story, Stephen's story essentially, and then Jody's son who wears a cochlear implant. Lucas's character is based on her son. And so they amalgamated the storylines into a book that was released, I believe, in 2008. So it's been out for a bit. And Stephen reached out to me back when it was released, because it was after my first couple of films had come out through Lionsgate. And he found me online. He sent me a bunch of memorabilia, and he'd already made shirts for the movie. And he was really excited. And I thought at that time, I mean, I definitely always wanted to make a baseball movie. I love The Sandlot, Field of Dreams, all of those iconic films, America's Pastime, Slice of America, Americana. Always wanted to sort of live in that space and work in that space. And this was an opportunity to do that, but it's also making a baseball movie with kids is pretty expensive for a independent micro budget feature, and that's really the projects that I was working on at the time. And so 10, 15 years passed. I had pitched the project to Disney when I worked there. They liked it, so they said, and but it's just hard to make those types of movies. That those really are budgeted at 15, 20, 25 million dollars, and it's just hard to market and profit them. in this, in this new landscape of distribution. And so I had tried to pitch the idea uh, with Disney and several other, platforms, but we just weren't getting anywhere. And then during the time of the pandemic, Stephen reached out again. Um, I always call it the quarterly report with him because he would check in every few months. He was very, very dedicated, and it was a big dream of his. And beginning of 2020, everything shut down. You guys know it. All the projects that I was developing with my manager, just everything shut down. So it was an opportunity for me to work on something that I wanted to do. And that's when I just thought I was going to adapt the screenplay, and then the screenplay would just sort of sit in a drawer, so to speak, the digital drawer of digital folder of my laptop.
Yeah.
But it was finally a project where I could, just have some fun and work on a Sandlot type kids baseball movie and see where it goes from there. And long story short, it started to pick up some traction after the first couple of drafts. People liked it. My manager said it was one of the best things he's seen from me. This was all surprising. And then little by little, we gained traction. We were going to just make it as a very small micro budget project. And then we got investors and resources. Curtis Pride came on, who's in the movie. His kids are in the movie, playing Lucas and Nikki. Those are his children. And he got Major League Baseball involved, and suddenly just the the status really raised the bar. And then we got additional investors, and then here we are.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I really like this idea of like the project kind of carrying itself away, almost like because that was our last film. I feel like our first film, it felt like a little more like we were
We
digging in the dirt with
pushed
our
it. We made it
fingernails,
happen.
like,
Yeah.
and then the second one, it was like we had like two kind of developing at the same time. One just kind of dropped dead, and then the other one just kind of opened up, and
Took off.
and it just wouldn't stop. And it hasn't stopped. It just keeps going without us. And we're like, oh, this is nice of you to bring us along, but it doesn't really feel like this force of will. And so like, that's kind of what you're saying. You're like, oh, wow, the script was received well, and then people are coming on board, and it's at least, and it doesn't feel like that every day, I'm sure, but like, but it's nice to feel that wind in the sails sometimes.
So well articulated. And me and Kathy and I are both spiritual people, and we do believe in the laws of the universe. And especially as it pertains to this industry, it feels like you can be working on something and dedicate all your time to it and feel like this is the project that's going to pick up and go. And it doesn't happen. And so often as filmmakers, we're spending so much of our time and resources to get something off the ground, and it can be years and years, and it's sort of a house of cards. And it just, like, I feel like other businesses, you can work on something and it's more tangible, and it might not succeed, but you have something to show for it. But you can develop a project in this industry for years and just nothing, like, it just dissipates, and so that's years of your life. And then something like Rally Caps, which is ironic to say because it was 15 years in the making, especially with the writers when they reached out to me. But honestly, when it came together very fast. And it was pretty much the last project that I thought that was going to happen to, especially during the pandemic when everyone was making films about two people in a cabin. Like, that's what you were supposed to do.
Right. Like a giant camp that's full of like a COVID central, like it's like nice.
Yes. 16 kids, their parents, a camp, like it's the last, like kind of the last thing to do as a micro budget film at that point. And of course, that's the one that happens. But to your point, yeah, you have to, ride the river downstream sometimes. And when it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And we fully believe in that, especially because of all of the checkpoints along the way. And I'm not sure if we have the time to get into all of it, but it just really, really crazy things had to happen. Small miracles, maybe even big miracles, Kathy, that happened to keep this project going, because there was many points along the line that was about to shut down, and it just something at the last minute, bottom of the ninth, as we joked, like
Yeah.
something would happen and it would stay alive. And so,
I always say to him, it's like, we have the executive producer was the universe. That's it. I mean, there was always something that when he was ready to like, okay, this is it, something happened. And he's like, okay, we keep moving. But it was like that at the end. Like I feel that this last 6 months of the movie, I was already trusting the universe so much that it's like, you know what, everything's gonna work out. I don't know how, but it will, because it was so many things that happened through the movie that it's like, okay, I'm gonna trust this. I'm gonna do my job. And that's as much as I can control. Once you let go the control, I think,
Mm.
is when things start going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
we
think you
love
have to
that.
kind of let go of the result and just, that's how it's been for us too, where we just have to have lots of irons in the fire and we don't really know what's going to happen when. The thing we're developing next is one we wrote 7 or 8 years ago. And it's just like, maybe now is the time, and you
Yeah.
never really know until it
And
starts to come
and it is
together
weird that it will stall as long as it needs to, and then all of a sudden you're like,
when the timing's
I
right.
need something right now, and then
It doesn't
something
stall.
and
Yeah.
then something breaks, and it's always like you guys said, bottom of the ninth. So I so relate to that. I really appreciate that perspective. It makes me feel less crazy.
Yeah.
The
So, can we rewind a little? I just want to, like, because you have a history of doing this for a while, kind of take us back to the beginning of your career. You said you worked at Disney, but now you're doing independent film. Like, how did you get into this? Is this what you guys are doing full time to support your family? What did that look like for you?
yeah, in a nutshell, like, I think it was David Mamet who said that every time he approaches a screenplay, it's a completely different process,
Mm.
despite him being a master at it at this point, right? Considered a master. And so it's so hard to, I guess, combine the entire like experience, because as you guys know, every time you make a movie, it's a different process.
Mhm.
But I think what really got me into it was just the power of the medium. The first time that I was able to make a short film in high school, and it was just my buddies and a couple classmates, and like the teacher shut off the room, we showed it in class, and people were touched by it, and laughed, and and all that. So it's a really powerful medium to get messages out. And I think that also there's, of course, there's the allure, and as a younger filmmaker, like, you love the awards and the red carpet and everything. And that's exciting too, right? To do something and uh, become a little bit more popular. But very early on into my career, I realized that all of that stuff, the red carpets and all that kind of stuff, doesn't hold a torch to the power of being able to contribute to society with things that can really touch people and move audiences. And so that's why I know that I stuck with it. And all that other stuff is, can I curse? Is that okay? Or is this
We won't
PC?
we won't stop it or edit
It's
it.
okay. I'll clean it up for you guys. But it's
Give us a
BS.
heads up
Like,
for kids if people have their kids around, I guess.
yeah. So I'll just say it's BS. All of this other, you know, um, you should feel proud of your work, and you should feel proud of awards and all of that stuff. But if you go into it like a self-fulfilling prophecy, or, a rites of passage for yourself, I just don't think you're going to get to the place you want to be.
Hmm.
At least that's been the journey for me. And so what's kept me in this is the power to get people to watch something and learn something about themselves, or connect to something about it, because it does have the power to save lives.
yeah.
And so that's what drives me.
Hmm.
I really appreciate that perspective because we're on movie number two. Movie number one didn't do a ton of
Well, it's still.
awards in terms of that,
Oh.
but it was really exciting to watch it with people. It was nerve-wracking too. But movie number two, it was like just this blessing of like working super hard on it. And there was like, Saturday morning it showed, and then Saturday night it won a lot of awards. It did pretty well with you guys as well. You guys did really well at ZIF. But but yeah, like the awards are strange and conflicting, and you have these things that happen in your head where you're like, well, these are just like that person's opinion versus that person's opinion, and it's weird what it does to you actually. And then like, but sitting in that room, like experiencing a story that you've really put together, like to your point with that audience. I remember Steven Spielberg talking about recreating that in The Fabelmans, like his early experiences, like showing short films in high school, basically, and how he's like
Yeah.
got hooked on that feeling of showing it to an audience and feeling this feeling of like I can like create this massive collective experience of like fear or laughter or tears or whatever or inspiration, and like it's like I'm not sure what it is that makes that so amazing, but we've often said that film is a medium of best suited for connection, not conversion. And
Hmm.
like I don't know, I resonate a lot with that perspective, so I appreciate that. How do you feel like your early films and early career really prepared the way for this film? Because you were saying that the book, the author, he like reached out to you, so he was familiar with your work, um, and that's kind of what we're all about, is trying to get people like some momentum, like get that first film made, so you can create momentum enough to have a career.
Hmm.
But most people just sit around, they don't make anything.
Well, and I think a lot of people feel like maybe their first film they try to make too big of a leap,
Too
you know?
precious.
It's like we've got to make $1 million film, we've got to have name talent, we got to do all these things. And so we really try to encourage our audience to start small, you know, and typically what we teach is sort of a getting financing in whatever way you can, keep your day job, like doing this on the side until you can build it up. Logistically, was that kind of how your first film looked, or was it independent from the very beginning for you?
Yeah, Kathy and I collaborated on, so answering the question before about like how many films we worked on. Yeah, I think it was technically two feature films, but like all these short films that we did together and pilots and all these projects. And yeah, I mean they naturally started small, and why I feel like we're such a good um, a collaboration of minds is that we're both creative, and but Kathy's very organized with being able to lead one side of the production, and I can lead the other side. So it was always helpful in the micro budget space to have a partner who could, understand how the logistics of it, and I can go be a little bit more creative. Um, so naturally, we did start from very small projects, and I think that, that is naturally good advice for filmmakers that are starting. But I also would just say that it really depends on the situation, right? There's people who get their starts with selling a made like a great script. Like they might have some fantasy, huge idea that they can, it's free to write a script, right? It's not free in terms of time and effort and sweat and blood and sweat and tears, but it's free. You don't have to invest your own money into it. So if you write a really great script and go that way, that's your path and you can get it made. But if you're looking to really get something off the ground, if you don't have that big idea, if you don't have that big script that's selling and you're trying to make it on your own, yes, small and concentrated. But I would just also really push the idea that what inspires you needs to be personal. And so whatever that takes, right? So just going out and saying I'm going to make a film for, I don't know, $5,000 because I can, great, have at it. But I think circling back to our earlier point, where if it's really coming from within and you have something to say, whatever it takes to make that the right way, that's what you got to go for. And if it happens to be a small budget, great. But
I would like
yeah,
to add something
go
to
for it.
Lee from a producer's perspective, because, for example, my background, I started this career as a line producer. I started like from coordinating to all the way to line producer to UPM. And one of the things is that when we moved to LA, I ended up in marketing. For some reason, life took me to marketing. And I started working in big studios in as in marketing, in creative marketing. And when I started learning about marketing, I said anybody should study marketing if you want to be a producer.
Mm.
I totally agree, and I think Riley Capps is a very good example. You can market a movie with heart. If you really feel that the movie has a heart, that is a passion of yours and all that stuff, perfect. But at the same time, let's be realistic. It's a business. If you want to stay in this business, you have to sell the movie. You have to know your audience. You have to know where the market. The cool thing that is happening right now is that there's so many genres and so many, like, that you can concentrate on many things, and there's always going to be a an audience for your movie. But one of the biggest things that I always say to people is, like, before you really go to the next project, really think about marketing. Think about who is my audience, who I can sell. Honestly, if there's big actors or not, that's not the thing. Like, once you know that there's an audience out there, okay, start managing the story based on, like, the audience that you know. And then just put your heart in it, but don't disregard that aspect of marketing. And I think that's why it's like every project that we have done from the beginning, I've been always picky with Lee of, like, how can I market this? Who would watch this? Because just making movies for yourself or your family, if you want to stay in this business, that would be hard, right? So that aspect, I would encourage every producer to learn about marketing. And it's not even about distribution, it's more about marketing. How can you make your movie and put it out there? That is with a great story, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're in the thick of that
I
right
think
now.
that's something we've been learning is, like, distributors for the most part are going to put your movie places, but they're not going to get people in the theater seats or to go watch it on the platform. So marketing has to be done somewhere, whether you're working with the team or doing it yourself, like we do on indie projects a lot.
Yes, such a great point. And distribution, I think a lot of new filmmakers come into with the idea that a distributor picks up their film and that's it. They're gonna take it, they're gonna put it out in the trades everywhere. They're gonna, put out this amazing trailer and they're gonna work 24/7 to just, like, promote your film. And yeah, unless you're Marvel, like a Marvel movie, that sort of effort's not going to happen. It's impossible for them. They don't have the bandwidth. In fact, it's pretty much, and I don't want to reduce it to this, but specifically on our level of film, which is, I'm talking about independent films made for under 5 million. Let's just put it in that category. You're really going to get a distributor that has a Rolodex, an index of a bunch of movies that they're taking out to all the film markets, and they've got to come with volume, and they're not going to prioritize your film, even if your film is the biggest one with stars in it. You're not going to get that sort of attention, and even if you are prioritized, it's still not going to be the attention that you want. So to Kathy's point and your point, Anna, like, it's so important to come in with with your own strategy, with your own sense of marketing. And yes, we for Rally Caps had the advantage of Kathy being in the marketing world, having worked for the studios and everything. But coming in with those pieces in place and a game plan to bring to the distributor and really be extremely active, not dominating and not having delusional expectations, but coming to them with ideas. Like, so we brought resources to them when we got our distribution deal. We came with ideas, and we weren't relying on them to hit a grand slam or pull miracles out of their pants. Like, that's really the mindset. You make the film and you finish it. You don't just hand it off to the distributor. Distribution is probably where you should put most of your resources and energy on this level. And I know that's crazy to say, because everyone, who makes a film on this level feels like they've sacrificed their entire life and their well-being to get it made. but really distribution is so important, especially now, because it's a game about getting attention. It's not anyone in the world can click one of our films and watch it in a matter of seconds. Like it's accessible to everyone in the in on Earth in a matter of seconds. It's about attention. And so that's the big game. That's the name of the game now.
And I will recommend to any budget, like even if you have $1,000 budget, just put $100 or any kind of budget into marketing. That has to be in your budget. And be smart about it on how to do it. And there's a lot of cheap resources nowadays that you can literally put ads out there in Google Ads and social media, create the landing pages and all that stuff to like really promote your movie, you know. Highly recommend everybody to have behind the scenes. Behind the scenes is going to be your major thing in marketing, because it's like you're gonna have what is happening, documenting the behind the scenes, amazing pictures. When you are doing your movie, have a photo shoot. Like, believe it or not, it's like sometimes people don't think about those things. Oh, I'm gonna take it from the movie. No.
The
Just
one
take
sheet,
pictures,
yeah,
anything to help you market the movie at the end. So just think about that.
that's one of the big tips we learned on this one was, a lot of people don't take stills on set of their actors, and when they get to distribution, they don't have a really refined looking poster because they don't have really good images of their actors. So they have to, create one from scratch, or they have to do a reshoot, and the actors are all older. So yeah, when you're on set, take your actors off to the side and get stills for marketing, and think about your one sheet, because that's the first thing a lot of these distributors are seeing, is that poster before your trailer, before anything else. So you got to think about all these things, and not to feel like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, because earlier I was giving the the advice to make a film from your heart, and you should. But once you got that story in place, to Kathy's point, you've got to start knocking down the strategy of marketing, and where it's going to find its audience. And if you have a Christmas movie, then you know what the audience is, and you know who you can approach, and you know how you can tweak the script to sort of fit certain platforms that put out Christmas movies, because you might want to make the newest, freshest Christmas movie idea that hasn't been done before, and it's going to be the Citizen Kane of Christmas movies. That's all great, but you should have at least an idea on a high platform that you're going to approach.
And again, yeah, if for example in this movie, Lee wrote the movie, and when he gave it to me, I gave him not a creative, I gave him marketing notes. I said, you would market, it would be marketed if you can just tweak this. And it was little tweaks. It's like, one of the things, I'm not sacrificing his story. I just know that if you put some elements, hey, I know this. The other thing is that people don't realize is product placement. Is like, okay, well, if you make this and make this tweak, I can go and ask somebody to sponsor it, our movie, and voila, you get money or you get some kind of free stuff. So those kind of thinking, so you can write your movie and the movie that you want to make, but then go and talk to somebody that has a marketing experience. Say, hey, how can we tweak and make this more marketable?
Yes.
Yeah, look,
Go
sorry, go ahead, Ken. No, I've been talking a lot, so you go for it.
Fine. No, I love what you guys are both saying.
That's so great.
The BTS, the marketing and the production budget, and the stills on set are all things that I've recently heard from distributors about. So I will just add my testimony to what you guys are saying, and so that it's something people ask about, and it's valuable. And then the other thing you were saying was about sponsorship. I do want to ask about that, because as you evolve, from asking your uncle for $10,000 to make your first, out of pocket movie, to having larger budgets, something we've started to learn is you have to piecemeal those budgets to reduce the equity finance portion of that budget as much as possible, because equity is the most expensive money you can get. And so you're mentioning things like product placement or even just sponsorship. You mentioned the MLB earlier. This seems like a good segue for me to just ask, what did that look like on this film? How do you pursue those relationships? Because I've recently read an article from a guy who works on the brand side of like funding creative projects, and he was very like, this is how I would approach a brand, but don't do it because it's rude and like basically give up now. Like he was very pessimistic in his article, even though it had valuable
Well,
information.
his perspective was the brand approaches the filmmaker, not the other way around.
Yeah.
We actually have been trying to figure out how to do sponsorship and product placement relationships unsuccessfully. So I'd love to
How did
learn.
that evolve for you guys on this
Yeah.
one?
So
So
so sorry, the brand approaches the film and not the other way around. Well, if that's the case, then we would have never gotten any sponsors for our movie. No, don't believe in that, and I don't think you do either. Yes, you definitely, especially because the movie can't be made without the sponsorship. You know, that's part of the budget. So like you're coming to them to come on board. I have a lot to say in this space. Kathy knows a lot more about this, so I'm going to pass this off to her in a second. I'll just say for filmmakers, I think a lot of times they can be a little precious and with their story, and they're like, well, it's a distraction if like, you know, a character's talking and also they drink a Coca-Cola. And my argument, and you go and watch Netflix movies right now, you see it, they're all over in your face. But you know what? You forget about it in a couple seconds. But you know, not in terms of like the sponsor. They get their, you know, like their audience might go grab a Coke and that's what they want and that's all they need. But in terms of your story, people are not going to think about the Coca-Cola within your story after a couple seconds. Let them be annoyed. You move on, and you get your film made. But you know, find a way to get it into your story and your script without it compromising. But approaching sponsors and all of that stuff, that's definitely got to be done really at the script stage. You start having those conversations, and it's really great if it, like in our case, one of our biggest sponsors was Phonak, and they're a hearing aid company. And obviously, one of our characters has a cochlear implant, recent surgery. And so it was a really good fit because it fit with the integrity of the story. And that character is a very strong character. And it, you know, it's so there, you want to look for a really good combination and not as much random stuff. But
Let me just ask, was
yeah,
that product placement the shot right before the swim test when he
there
puts
you
it?
go.
That's the product placement?
yeah.
Zero distraction. I just thought it was really interesting because I thought that's a nice detail that we see the kid take it out and put it. It just felt like the world building of like one kid's got anxiety, this other kid's dealing with this part of his life where he has to put these things in and out. And it helps, I think, children watching a movie kind of that adds to the value of the film, in my opinion, because it helps these children realize like this kid can't swim with these in. There are people like this in the world. So when you meet one, it's like, oh yeah, I kind of know about that. And it's not this weird like I'm gonna treat him weirdly. You know, I don't know. For me, it was nice. So I never for once was like, oh, what the like, hey,
Yeah.
buy this thing. It's like so.
No, that's a perfect example of, and thank you for noticing that. I think you can weave it into your story if you work with the brand,
Mhm.
and if you're on aligned with the integrity of what the story is, then you can weave it seamlessly in. It's not going to always be the case, but in that case, in our situation, it was a perfect fit, and you could serve each other, but it also is about working with the brand and being open-minded, right? Like, so that scene was not necessarily written with an emphasis on seeing what he was wearing, but we did want the audience to know that he needed a different device and a protection for the hearing aid to swim, and that is important to his character building. And so we worked with the brand to figure out a way that works for both sides. But yeah, Kathy, I don't know if you had anything to add in terms of the business
Well,
side of it,
this
but
yeah, this is a very extensive topic actually. I mean, we can do just one podcast about marketing and
We
sponsor,
should.
but
Yeah.
I feel
yeah,
I feel that this is the way to make independent filmmaking. But it's how you approach the brands. Like there's two different paths. One, yes, you have to have connections. You have to have people that are sellers. There's agencies out there that specialize in product placement. Basically, they are the ones that works with brands. They're agencies by themselves. They work with brands, and basically, the brand sometimes says, "Hey, you know what? I need, I don't know, I need a movie where I can put my Toyota in there." And then the agencies start looking for those kind of projects. So having those connections in the agencies, with the agencies, it's amazing. With salespeople are the ones that are always looking for projects or something that will help you to like, hey, let me take this project and put it and take it to a brand. There's many different things of why they want to sponsor your movie. Number one, we had Amy Smart and Judd Hirsch, so that helped because they give okay, this is legit. They have a budget. Also, it depends on the sponsorship. It's like, okay, are you selling this per line? Like, how many lines do you have? You create packages of selling packages. Like one package is like, if your product will be on here, it would be this much. If you have lines plus product, is this much. So you start creating marketing packages, basically, sponsorship packages. The biggest sponsor we had was Phonic, but we had other sponsors where we're like just adding to a film. Like, for example, it's like Hot Dog Stand. It's like, okay, we had this big brand. They knew that the movie was legit because we had two big actors. So they won the product there, but they didn't give us any kind of money. They were just product placement there, but doesn't matter because that raises the project a little bit more than just having a uh, hot dog stand, a simple hot dog stand, right? Yeah, than a really good brand. Exactly. So that makes a big difference. But I would say for just starting projects, do the simple things. In your budget, you're going to have catering. You're going to have expenses in food. You're going to have expenses in makeup. You're going to have expenses. All that you can approach people that literally for restaurants, you can approach restaurants for them to sponsor your food every single day. And all they want probably would be just a shot at the beginning, just a shot of the outside of the restaurant, or just simple a credit, or just when the poster is out there to put sponsored by, and they have. Look for makeup people that wants to like, I don't know, salons that wants to promote themselves. It's free marketing for them. And you can actually like literally have a big audience. So when you approach these kind of things, you can start lowering your budget a lot.
That's a great
You don't
point.
have to just think about getting money back. Like, oh, I'm going to sell this package. I'm going to get money so I can do this. No. What in your budget, you can start reducing the budget and approach those people that is like, oh, you know what? They probably, I don't know, whoever makes cupcakes can actually, I have cupcakes in my film, it's like that person would love it. And a shot of the cupcakes and the picture of their brand, that's it, what they want. So be creative in that aspect. But I feel that this is the best way to do it for independent filmmaking because we don't have to return the money.
Can I ask
Bingo.
you a question on that? You guys didn't use a local salon to do the broken nose makeup because that was really good, actually. It was almost too good. I was like, this is like graphic, man. This kid's nose situation is.
Actually, we hired somebody from Vegas.
Oh, wow.
But that one actually was a connection. So
They did a great job.
Yeah, especially like she came in and literally just did that for one day. But yeah, it was obviously worth the resources to like pull off like how realistic it is. But going back a second, so this is a conversation Kathy and I have had for our next film. Is like if we're doing something on this level ish of rally caps or lower, it might make sense to just get it fully sponsored or at least mostly sponsored because distribution is really, really tough right now, as we've already covered pretty clearly. But money that you don't have to make back is really helpful. certainly helps going into distribution if you're only looking to get singles and doubles out of it and not trying to get a grand slam because you think you have to make all this money back. So I think what I'm trying to say is that like this could be, we're looking at it as that's the future of micro budget filmmaking, is trying to get it fully sponsored. The riches are in the niches. Try to even if a brand it like funds your entire movie, and let's say like, I don't know, it's a construction company, you can make your entire movie around that construction company. The main character has that, like their job is, they're a construction worker, an architect or something like that, and the brand finances the whole movie, right? If you're making a really small boot, that's what we would try to propose, and not raise private equity, which we did both of. We've had private equity and sponsorship, big chunks, but it still is going to be a mountain to climb. And we have stars and all of these things that we did right. And I'm not saying our movie is perfect by any means. It is what it is. It's got flaws, but the actual making of it, we feel like we checked a lot of boxes. There was a ton of sweat equity. The movie, its production value, most people believe is maybe 2-3 times the amount that we actually spent. But that was on the backs of so much effort put on by main people that took back end. So we did all the things right, and we're still looking at a really big uphill battle just to make our money back. So that's just the reality of it. So yeah, it's not just about consolidating the budget. It's about if you can get sponsorship, and not have to make the money back, that's great. And one last real quick point is, I think even if you're making a movie for $1,000 or $5,000, I think a lot of people go into it and they're just like, they just start and they just start putting money into it and they figure it out, and at the end of the day they think they spent more than they wanted to, or they didn't spend money in the right areas and they run out of money. Do a budget. Consult with a line producer who is, or if you have experience with budgets, it's such an important thing. Like, get a program, you can get free trials, look at the line items and look at the reality of it. Like, if you have all of your friends working for you and all the actors are putting it on the back end and they're not, that's all great, you're saving money, but you want to feed your crew and cast, right? Like, finding a way to get decent food, whether by sponsorship or whatever, like, other equipment. Do you really need certain things, or can you shoot it a different way where you don't need that, I don't know, like that Fisher dolly that's just going to be sitting there after the 5 minutes that you used for that one shot, and then it's sitting there. Like, that's happened to me. Like, my DP wanted a Fisher dolly for this great dolly shot, and if that shot looks great, it does, it's a great piece of equipment, but then it sat there for the rest of the day because we had to make our day. We didn't have time to develop shot design for these, for the Fisher dolly. And so, yeah, it's those kinds of things, like, really budget it out, and so you can see it from a bird's eye view where you're going to spend your money. Because even at a low level, I see people wasting so much money on nonsense, and none of it goes on screen.
And one thing that I wanted to add there is the contingency. What is contingency? Contingency is the money that you just save in case of something happens, and people never think about this. And then at the end, then you do all your budget and all that stuff, and then you're like, oh, I run out of money. Like, no. One of the things I'm going to tell you is that put some kind of money out there. And my second advice, please, 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 try to find a lawyer. Don't try to do a contract with AI. It's insane what happens. Your best friend, is like, from my whole career, that is when I'm already an expert reading contracts, because I had to learn so much of just an advice, or even just see a sponsor of a lawyer. They can do that, like, hey, can you look at that? Can you sponsor my movie? And can you help me? And the contracts of film independent is not that big. But I will always advise contingency on a budget, marketing budget, and then something that is legal aspects, because when you go into distribution, you're going to have a lot of legal aspects, and there's things that you were not counting on, and that you need somebody outside of you to see if this is convenient for you or not.
That's really great advice. We actually are have yet to release an already recorded podcast episode with Peter Salsich, who's a entertainment lawyer who goes into working that into your budget kind of stuff. So check that episode out if that's of interest, which it should be, to Catherine's point. So I appreciate you mentioning some of those things that are we all know people look over them, because at least Anne and I have done that looking over.
Guilty. Yeah.
So yeah, you guys, this is so awesome. I have a couple other things before we wrap up. I wanted to ask, you mentioned at the beginning about having a manager. So talk to me about, managers aren't agents necessarily, but do you have an agent? Do you have a manager?
Is this for writing or directing?
Writing, directing, and has that been valuable for you in your career, or do you feel like, I don't know, like for someone just starting versus someone kind of in it a little bit?
At what point do you need a manager? Do you need a manager? Yeah.
Yeah, great question. So I have a manager for writing and directing, really all things, but those are the two positions that he's focused on hustling to get work for me. So his name's James Smith from Aaron Cogan Management. And I will start with saying that, again, it's another situation where I think people get into and they're like, oh, I have a manager. He's going to go get me an episode on an episode of, I don't know, Stranger Things or something like that, right?
I was thinking Stranger Things too. I don't know why that's
Same
the
I'm just trying to think of the biggest thing in Hollywood, right? Like that's where people's minds are at. It's like, oh, I can direct an episode of that because, I don't know, I love the Goonies, so I can do that.
I'm the perfect fit, yeah.
Right? So I'm entitled to that. No. And so, but just the idea that like they're going to run around and hustle, and they do. But the reality of trying to get you on a project or get you work, it's the same thing like with a distributor. It's a partnership at the beginning. Now, once you hit it big, it's a different story, right? Then you're kind of like you might be fielding offers at that point. But we're talking, that's like less than 1% of what people are dealing with. Like you're going to be more in that middle range where you have some stuff to show, but you're working with them to try to find some sort of branding for yourself, if you will. Right at this point, my biggest relationship with him is us just dissecting scripts, reading scripts, starting a dialogue on ideas. And it's a support system too. Like, it's I find the script that I like that someone else wrote, or I have an idea, I can bounce it off of him. He's very personable that way. And that's where the value is having another partner that's helping you. But you got to help him to help you. So, or help her to help you. And so that's, go into it with the right mindset that you're building something together, and then it's going to take off when it takes off. But their job is not to go out and get stuff for you, because it's just not realistic. The best they can do is probably get you some meetings, but you got to build your own career, and they're there to assist you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think that as we've been going down this road, that's something I've been feeling, which is just this, like, sometimes I get this alone feeling. Even though we do this together, even for two people, film is a big machine. It's big, and sometimes you just need to bring partners on board. And sometimes it's a balance between being independent and thrifty and wise, but then on the flip side being sort of abundantly minded and collaborative and
trusting.
and trusting. Yeah, like bringing people into that circle, because when you find the right people, they can add so much value. So I love that you're saying, like, look, this is just someone so that you're not doing this alone all the time. Like, you have someone to talk to about scripts, or you might have someone to help you manage meetings. That alone that would be very valuable.
Yeah.
So I can see that value. I appreciate that perspective.
Financially, is it like an agent where they take a percentage, or is it something that you pay him to help you a certain amount?
Yeah. Depends on whatever situation that you work out with your with your rep, but like with us it is a percentage, but it's essentially if he lands a project,
Yeah.
or but it's up for debate because he helped out with getting us resources for rally caps, and so it's sort of this unofficial, hey, if we do well with rally caps, we'll take care of you, that kind of thing. But for the most part, he's contracted to get percentages of work that he finds for me. But it's loose, it really depends on the situation, and there's a matter of trust between us that that we know that doesn't have to be like written in the law. Um, but yeah, man, film is the probably the most collaborative art form, right? Like events, that those kind of things. Like it takes a village, and so if you have to really bring in people into the fold that you trust.
Mhm.
I know we're also running out of time too, and I was hoping that we touch on a little bit on um, great questions, by the way. But yeah, Kathy and I definitely would love to talk to them about SAG if there's time. If
Yeah.
there's time after your question,
No,
that's a big
yeah, no
one.
rush.
I'm just thinking about like the biggest pitfall that we ran into with this project.
Yeah.
Uh, and I don't know if we want to jump into it now or we
Yeah,
Let's
want
do
to do
it.
that.
I think we
absolutely.
can end with
No
that.
rush.
Yeah.
So I know that maybe a lot of your audience is doing micro budget projects. But attaching a star name, even for these small projects now, you might get a famous person to read your script and be in it.
Mhm.
And that's tremendous. And that's basically what happened to us. Like I had a producer friend, that I brought the script to, and she had for the mom and pop roles, she was like, "Oh, I know these people. I'm going to bring it to them." It didn't ultimately work out, but she came back to me and she said, "Make a wish list," right? And so I went to IMDb. I made my and the top of the list was Judd Hirsch and Amy Smart. And this was also, like I know that we're not getting A-lister, right? But this was the top of my priority list based on the resources that I think we could get. And also great fit for the roles. And luckily, we got the script to their manager, made the offer, and they both accepted. And so we're talking about Judd Hirsch, who's an Academy Award nominee. He was working on the Spielberg film a week after Rally Caps. Amy Smart is a legend in her own right. And that's all great. And I think that people think, oh, you make the offer, the agent takes it to them, and this is after we raised some money already, so we had them. You have to have the money in place to actually offer them. Like if you're just trying to like get someone attached without money, it's not going to happen unless that actor is your best friend, and then they'll attach themselves and allow you to use their name to raise money. But you can't do that. Yeah, you're going to run into a wall if you're just trying to cold email the agent. They're just going to ask you how much you're offering and what are the dates. And then you have to put that money in escrow and prove that you have it. So we did have that money and we did offer it to them, and we thought we were golden. We're like, okay, we got these actors, and essentially that was true. But the biggest pitfall that we ran into was not registering the movie with Screen Actors Guild, and they have the power to stop your film
Yeah.
if you don't have your what together. And at that point, Kathy was not on the project yet. She was not planning to produce this, but she had to come on board at that point. And thank God. And we got a line producer that knew what they were doing, and they pulled it all together. But we had basically made the offer with the budget, and our entire budget went to them, and we didn't think about registering the movie with Screen Actors Guild, and we came within like a week of shooting the movie, and they were like, "This is not going to be a go project." And what that means is like all that money you put into escrow for the actors, like that's going to go to them, and they can take that money if they want, whether you get your project
Oh, wow.
shot or not. So you have to be
Depending on the
super careful.
contract, but yes.
Yeah.
So is it like
Absolutely.
was it like a pay or play deal kind of thing?
Yeah, you're only going to get pretty much player pay.
Yeah, I
Pay.
mean, that's one of
That's pretty
yeah,
much the
that's
deal.
one of the challenges that you're going to face with talent that uh unfortunately is business for them. It's not like, oh, I love your project. It's business
For their representatives.
for the representative because the actors are completely different.
No.
Yeah. But
They're great.
yes, I mean, and one thing that I want to emphasize a lot when you deal with SAG is so much paperwork. Like it's insane paperwork that literally, I mean, they've asked months in advance to start doing
Six
the
to 8
paperwork.
weeks is when you should start the paperwork for SAG.
Wow.
We got lucky. So I don't want to put this out there like, you can come in the 11th hour and it'll happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't live on that because you'll lose everything.
Mm-hmm.
But we started like 2 weeks ahead and we lucked out. But we also did have our paperwork in, for the most part together too. We got people to sign contracts and all that stuff. But yes, 6 to 8 weeks out is when you should start registering with Screen Actors Guild. And also be prepared to pay what they call a bond, which don't quote me on this because this is not exactly how it works. You'd have to talk to a SAG affiliate, but it's essentially works like a deposit where they take a portion of your budget to make sure that their actors don't get screwed over. Because you could like promise the world to their actors, and this is what happened in the past and why there's guilds in the first place. Filmmakers will and producers will promise something to the actor and they never get paid. So that bond, that deposit is a big chunk of your budget, and you have to pay that. You have to put it into escrow right away.
And that's on
So
top of what you've already put in the escrow for the actor.
Yeah.
Oh.
Exactly. So in our case, right? So I don't want to give you the exact numbers that we gave
It
Judd and
depends on the
Amy,
budget. Yeah.
but I'm just going to give an arbitrary number just for the sake of this conversation. All right. So let's say your budget is $100,000.
Yeah.
And you've got a major star that's like, I want to be in it. I'm not going to do it for less than 75,000. I just can't. My agent won't let me do it. Right. So that 75,000 goes into escrow,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that is gone. And so like this is sort of what we were dealing with. We're like, oh, we got the money to pay them, we're good. But once that money went and like we have 25,000 left over and SAG is like looking at our budget and they're like, okay, well, our bond is 50,000 for this movie, right? Again, these are not numbers that would actually work out that way. Again, I'm just giving you like a simplified version.
We totally get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
But just remember that
they-
as soon as you have SAG actors, everybody else becomes SAG. Even
Now, what
if
if
they
it's
are not
everyone in your
work?
cast.
What if it's a
Everyone-
right to work state?
Does that make a difference?
Because then technically you can work on a SAG production if you're non-union. Does that mean you still?
Yes, you can, but you have a limited amount of people that you can bring to a project.
Okay.
But a lot of like our kids were not SAG, and
Yeah.
they
Right.
had to like
And
we have to pay them SAG minimum.
And that's everyone who has a speaking line, even if it's like
Yes.
someone in the crowd that's like, yeah, go team, right? Like, or hey, good job, or like just hey, right? If they're speaking something, they are
Automatically SAG.
automatically SAG.
Oh, wow.
So yeah. Anyway, going back to what I was saying, like, we 25,000 left in the budget, and SAG asked, for this, you have to put that in escrow. You have to start raising money, and that's what happened with us. We were like, oh my goodness, and but it was much more than that.
Yeah.
And so we were in this hole where we had to like raise the money just to get it shot. And we shot out our stars in a couple of days, and then we had to raise money to make the rest of the film. So everything you see with Judd and Amy, we shot in like a 3-day span. We consolidated to just the house scenes, but it still is 27 pages of script in 3 days, which is a lot.
Yeah.
That
To go through.
blows my flipping mind. That you guys got 27 pages of script in 3 days.
Yes. And
That
we
is
were not
excellent.
we were not like a running gunning type where it's just like, we're running around outside with just one camera and we can just use natural lighting. It was all indoors. You're dealing with two stars that would, and let me just make it clear, they're phenomenal. Both Amy and Judd, and their attitudes were great. Literally never really an issue at all. They knew the kind of project we were making, and they were just there to compliment. So we got extremely lucky. That being said, you can't just like, you know, throw Judd Hirsch on set and start rolling. And he's not your brother or your uncle who would agreed to be in the film. And you can kind of like use them as a pawn piece. And no actor, even if they are your uncle and brother, you should not treat them like a pawn piece. But there's not, they need to have like their what we call honey wagons, which are just their trailers and all of that stuff. Like they need time to need to work with them. They need to get into their roles. And so yeah, it was crazy, very crazy. But the reason we're talking about it now is to help people be prepared. If you are prepared, and there's a lot of like, especially with directors, that they show up on set and they're super nervous and they're like, there's a lot of anxiety, and that's going to happen anyway. But if you come prepared, there's really nothing to worry about. You should be able to go out there and play in your sandbox once everything's, but you've got to do the work beforehand to set the stage. Because if not, you're throwing yourself out to the wolves.
And that is where I feel that building a team is so important. Like everybody wants to be the director, the producer, the writer, the blah, blah. Like, you know what? I came on board because I saw that I wanted Lee to be the creative. I didn't want him to deal with paperwork. I didn't want him to be just, although he's a producer in the film, I didn't want him to be a producer hat. Like, no, I mean, bring people that you trust that like literally delegate. The learning how to delegate is important, but at the same time, I know it's kind of scary because you need to build a team that you trust.
Yeah.
And that is the biggest challenge in this industry. Building a team that you can literally say, I trust you. There's a lot of open communication. There's no egos. And unfortunately, we're in an industry where egos are everywhere. And dealing with personalities, learning how to deal with personalities. As a producer, that is your job. You need to, sometimes you're going to be a therapist, sometimes you're going to be a mom, sometimes you're going to be I don't know, makeup person. Like, it's like you will have to be there for people that sometimes you're like, I was not expecting to be that. But as a producer, unfortunately, we need to learn how to deal with personalities. And when sometimes you have the opportunity to build your team, which is good for film independent. But when we started doing these kind of projects, sometimes you bring people on board that you were not meant to bring, and there's personalities that you need to learn how to deal with. And sometimes it's not your best friend, and you're not going to be happy about it. And sometimes you're going to be a bad cop because you have to say no to everything, and they're going to yell at you. So it's learning as a producer, building that skill of communication with different kind of personalities, and also learning that it's not your fault, learning that this is business, not taking it so personal, like building a thick skin basically, and I always recommend open communication. I mean, try to be as honest and say, hey, can we talk about this? And if there's a lot of roughness, like just like cool down and just come back when you guys can. But that is the biggest thing that I would recommend everybody. Just make sure that if you have a small team, build something you love. Speak with people that empowers you, not to put you down.
Yeah.
And if you can't build a team and it's just that it happened, learn how to learn with deal with personalities.
Yeah, I will say too, on the creative end, I think the optics of this business is, and I will call it a business because it is a freaking business. Show business. Business is two more syllables or another syllable than show. So it's more business than it is showtime. The optics are, people look at, filmmakers as artists, right? That they're just like having fun. They're on set and like, wearing some hippie gown and just being creative. Well, look, let me tell you this, like, and you guys know, it's like There is creativity, a lot of that is involved, but the stream of consciousness should be for your writing. But 99% of making a film is business and logistics, even when you're doing something that's entirely small, because you're figuring out what the location is, you're figuring out what time the actors have to come. So, to Kathy's point, definitely build a team that focuses on this and understand that this is, I don't care what your judgmental uncle or aunt are saying about your career. You are doing as much business in this art form than they're doing in their business, probably more, right? Because you are
Yeah.
organizing a collective and you have to be prepared and you have to have a team and you have to have people that are on top of their stuff. And yes, the creative is an aspect of it, and
Well,
that's what you're going to see on screen. But to get that stuff on screen it's mostly business. So start learning that aspect as soon as you can.
we're essentially serial entrepreneurs because you're starting with each movie a new business from the ground up,
Yeah.
So it's just a
Product, it's
nonstop.
all product and brand and sales and distribution. It's so
Not to
much.
mention managing the ones you already started.
HR, everything.
Yeah,
And then,
one startup company after the next, right?
Yes.
yeah, it is. Yeah, it's wild. Well, you guys, this has been like I got kind of quiet there because I just felt like I was learning so much. You guys have a great depth of knowledge and experience, and honestly, I'm just super grateful for your transparency and getting into some of the nitty-gritty. This it's like a nitty-gritty that people don't want to get into for some reason or another, but especially as independent artists, being that transparent with each other, I think is going to help us to survive in what is becoming the new movie industry, which is this intense democratization, which I feel like is going to lead to um, the downfall of the way things people are used to doing things. It really is the downfall of what people expect. We hear old timers telling us, just do X, Y, and Z, and then people give you a check, and then you make this movie, and then it goes out, and then this is the person who takes it away for you. And it's like, well, actually, because we have the luxury of needing very few people's permission to make movies now, uh, it comes with this massive responsibility of having to do all the jobs that you guys went into detail on in this episode. And so getting into the gritty details of how to do those jobs is essential. So I really am just grateful for that.
Yeah, thank you so much. You've been so generous with your time and your knowledge. And I just want to finish by asking where can we send people to see your work and what's next on the horizon?
So Rally Caps is on Peacock. So just go there, and if you have Peacock, you can watch it for free. If you don't, you can still watch it for free. Get a free trial and watch it on. So that's where really we direct everybody. And if for some reason you can't, it is on Apple TV and Amazon and for rent. But I would go to Peacock. Go to Peacock.
Good to
Yeah,
know.
but to contact us is crystalrockentertainment.com.
Okay.
So crystalrockentertainment.com.
Okay,
Awesome.
we'll put that in the show notes and get the spelling for you. So
Peacock
Yeah.
and crystalrockentertainment.com.
go check out Rally
And
Caps.
Check out Rally Caps.
Yes.
Some great performances. I wish we could go more into detail into cast, honestly, than we did. But I will just say that not just your two names, Judd and Amy, which were great, the whole cast. I was really impressed
Yeah.
by the work that had to have gone in to cast that many people and that many children. So just a lot to be proud of, you guys. So thanks so much for being on the show, and thanks for making Rally Caps.
Thank you.
Thank-
Thank you for your time. And yes, and if you have any questions, we're here for you guys. I mean, the idea is to help the community somehow, somewhere to and it's vice versa. We learn from you guys, you learn from us. It's not just that because we made it, we made more movies than you guys. You guys have also your knowledge that probably sometimes we can't talk about it and say oh, I learned from that, So
Absolutely.
it's
Absolutely.
just
It's
learning from each other.
it's a community, and we thank you guys for your contribution for getting this knowledge out there, because it's super important. Because there's a really weird dichotomy going on with filmmakers right now, where it's like I feel like what you just said a second ago, Ken, about how accessible and not easy it is to make, but it's available, everything that we need to make a film. But it's never been harder. right? Like I feel it's but much different like than 10, 15 years ago when you really needed to, or even 20 years ago, like more so, you needed a lot of resources to get a movie made. You had to shoot on film or whatever it was. It's accessible, but I still think of filmmakers come with the mentality of like the 1995 Sundance Film Festival method, where you're going to make your big film. It's going to get picked up by some huge company. You're going to get a 3-picture deal. And it's so weird because that is gone. Like, I
Yeah.
don't even know. I guess Sundance still has some big payouts, but that's what everyone's filmmaker dream is. Like they go to film school and I don't know what they're teaching there, but like, but it's very strange, but it's a completely new world. And Kathy and we usually watch the Academy Awards. We actually didn't watch them this year. Like I haven't watched any of the big films, and that's not to say that like that's not still big and epic. It's just how we're consuming content is completely different. Movies are different than they were 15 years ago. And so, yeah, get with the program, right? There's a lot more opportunities. It's just a lot different than it was. So you got to get over this idea of being like the next Tarantino and stuff because Tarantino did it in a different era, right?
Yep. Yep.
So no, thank you guys, and I also congratulate you guys on your success at Science. It was so nice to connect. And hey, like Kathy said, anytime we're here for you guys. We'd love to do it again.
Thanks for joining us today. If you like what you're hearing on the podcast, you'll love the Feature Filmmaker Academy, a program designed to teach anyone how to finance and finish a feature film.
There are many resources teaching you how to do a great job, but what they don't teach you is how to get the job in the first place.
You cannot have a career making feature films until you've made at least one. Anyone can make a feature film using our proven model.
It's risk-free. If you follow all the steps in the program, you'll finance and finish a feature film or we'll give you your money back.
Learn more at invisiblemansion.com/feature filmmaker or click the link in the show notes.
If you find this free resource valuable, we'd really appreciate it if you leave us a review or share it with another filmmaker.
We'll see you next time. Bye.